Good morning, metalheads of the internet. Welcome to a new episode of the Metal Meltdown. Today we will be looking at the latest album from Warbringer, entitled Weapons of Tomorrow. Of all the bands to pop out of the late 2000s thrash metal resurgence, Warbringer is probably one of the most active and consistent in quality. Sure, they may not have anything as iconic as The Art of Partying or as ambitious as Terminal Redux under their belts, but unlike Municipal Waste, they have remained relatively active, constantly touring, constantly playing, releasing albums every few years with no real significant dips in quality. And unlike Vector, well, they didn't beat their wives and disappear off the face of the fucking earth. Allegedly. They've always been dependable and reliable. Their albums may not consistently rank as the best of their respective years, but they are always highly entertaining, delivering everything that makes thrash metal so exciting and invigorating still to this day. Unsurprisingly, Weapons of Tomorrow is very much the same, but this time around, Warbringer, perhaps anticipating these kinds of comments that they are so consistent and perhaps even repetitive, have gone out of their way to introduce a few more twists and turns into the regular layout and formula. For one, while this is still very much a thrash record, it is a much heavier, sharper, and more extreme thrash record in comparison to some of their other records, and there are some other more progressive and experimental influences that can be found, some subtly, some not, across the record. But more notably, the band have capitalized on their often politically and socially poignant lyrics by expanding Weapons of Tomorrow into a semi-concept album, centering entirely around war, be it nuclear war, technological war, the advancements of war, or the political and humanitarian consequences of war. As lead singer John Kevill says here, I put a lot of thought and detail into the lyrical content of this album. There's often a storytelling component in which the song's lyrics develop or turn along with the music and structure of the song. And while this isn't necessarily a completely fresh approach to writing thrash metal, it feels fresh coming from Warbringer, especially with this storytelling aspect. There are often these mini episodic narratives throughout tracks that evolve and detail some pretty horrific events. The track Glorious End being the best example of this on the record, following a group of young, patriotic, and somewhat bloodthirsty young men who quite stubbornly rush headfirst into war without understanding the consequences of the atrocities of war. At first believing that if they are to die, it must be on the battlefield because that's the courageous and powerful thing to do, before coming to the conclusion that there is no glory in war, period. Saying in this particularly effective passage, "As I die among so many, my name is lost in the crowd. As I'm spitting out my lungs, my Father, are you proud? Truly a glorious end. Into a silent tomb I fall. What glory awaits us all? Tell me, Father, have you lied? This is no way for a soldier to die. Was there a meaning when I fell?" All of this emboldened with some of the most brutal thrash that Warbringer have put out to date, hearkening to the likes of Rob Duke's era Exodus, Modern Creator, with some subtle blackened spices all throughout, giving it that little extra bitter spice. Another great example, the track Black Hand Reaches Out, itself pulling directly from our own history, detailing the assassination of one Franz Ferdinand. To say that this is a remarkably dark and controversial moment in history to pull direct inspiration from is a fucking understatement, but Warbringer rise to that challenge, even going as far as to make the lyrics represent the actual orders given out by the Black Hand organization to Franz Ferdinand's actual assassin. I particularly like how as the story in the song grows to be more hectic and stark over time, so too does the music, starting off with some more typical mid-paced chunky thrash metal before indulging in endless assaults of metallic noise, guitar solos, and vocal onslaughts all over the place, with a final drum smack ringing so loud that it feels as if a gun actually went off while you were listening to the record. But it's not just the history, the past of war, that Warbringer wants to take inspiration from. They're also looking to the future. Take, for instance, the dystopian sci-fi shredding of a track like Outer Reaches, which contemplates what war might look like in the future in the cold, lonely depths of space. It's worth noting as well that this track, alongside Heart of Darkness, is where we really get to see new bass player Chase Bryant stretch his wings and leave his own unique stamp on Warbringer. Kind of bringing this almost Cliff Burton-esque ingenuity and musicianship to Warbringer, which itself inspires the band in certain parts to up their own respective games. Take, for instance, on the aforementioned Heart of Darkness, which does begin to border into death metal territory in its most brutal and violent moments. Now, not every track on this record is as musically or conceptually as ambitious as some of the ones we've already mentioned, but let it be known that even when Warbringer resorts to a more typical brand of thrash metal, they're still performing it better than a wide majority of bands out there. The likes of Firepower Kills and Crush Beneath the Tracks in particular rank as some of the most carnivorous and bone-crushingly heavy tracks that Warbringer have ever constructed. And I can't tell you how happy, nay, relieved I am that there is at least one thrash band out there that understands that too much of a good thing can become a bad thing, as the album very wisely wraps up with 10 songs clocking in at a sharp 50 minutes. Thank fucking Lord, one of the biggest problems with modern thrash records is none of these bands know how to edit their fucking material. They don't know when to shut the fuck up and go home. Even a band as legendary and important to this genre as Testament consistently suffers from this. But Warbringer has that shit down. Thank you for that. Thank you just for that. I'd give this album a highly enthusiastic 4 out of 5, and I would even go as far as to say that the thrash metal drought that I have been talking of for quite some time is finally coming to an end, thanks in part to this album. It's ambitious, it's epic, it's dramatic, it's politically and socially relevant, but perhaps most importantly, it retains everything that makes a great thrash metal record, everything that makes a great Warbringer record. Longtime fans will be absolutely elated with this. I would be incredibly shocked to see a single Warbringer fan not in love with this album. I guess if you really wanted to be an asshole, you could sit here and go, well, it's not different from the other records, so who cares? And I guess objectively you're not wrong. It's not as if there has been a massive, drastic change in the band's style, approach, or aesthetic. But in doing so, you'd miss the point of this album and arguably this whole genre. Thrash metal, more than any other genre, doesn't fix what isn't broken. Thrash metal may have been weak for a while, but far from broken, and thankfully Warbringer are here just in time to give it that extra boost that I think we've all really needed, especially now as we're literally locked inside, kind of aching and lumbering away. Highly recommend this album. If you've been looking for a seriously powerful piece of thrash, you can't go wrong with this one bit. 4 out of 5, fucking great. And that is it for the Metal Meltdown. I'm not an expert, nor do I claim to be, so what do you think? Do you like this record? Do you not like this record? And what do you want to hear from me next? And thank you for watching. Make sure you press subscribe right there so you get updates on the Metal Meltdown fucking immediately, and you have yourself a fantastic fucking day.